13 cities. An unlucky number for an unlucky list. Somewhere in Texas, right now, there's a city of 16,000 inhabitants with a violent crime rate statistically double that of Chicago. It's not Houston. It's not Dallas. It's not San Antonio. It's a city that most Brazilians and Americans have never heard of. And it's not even the most shocking entry on this list. These are the 13 places in Texas where you should think very carefully before moving. Let's delve deeper. Real data, real problems, and the numbers that real estate guides and brokers will never show you. Welcome to the channel. Every day, approximately 1,000 people move to Texas. The state gained 391,000 new residents last year alone, more than any other state in the country. People come from California, New York, the Midwest. And most make this decision based on headlines. No state income tax, booming economy, plenty of space. And for much of Texas, that's true, but Texas is huge, bigger than France. And some parts of the state have crime rates, poverty levels, and living conditions that would shock anyone who believes the narrative that everything is better in Texas. This video isn't against Texas. It's in favor of information. Because if you're going to move here, you deserve to know the full picture, not just a marketing version. Quick note before we begin. Crime statistics are averages per city. Not all neighborhoods in these cities are equally affected, but the aggregate numbers tell a story that potential residents need to hear. And the number one city will completely change the way you see this state. Let's go. Alice is located in the interior of South Texas, about 110 kilometers west of Corpus Christi. Population, approximately 17,700 people. It is the county seat of Jim Wells County. On the surface, it looks like a quiet farming town, the kind of place you pass by on the highway, without even noticing. But the data tells a different story. The violent crime rate in Alice is 432 per 100,000 residents. That's 129% above the Texas average. The total crime rate comes in at nearly 4,800 per 100,000, meaning the average resident faces a real and measurable risk every year. The economy is weak. Oil and gas provide some jobs, but when energy prices fall, Alice feels it immediately. Median household income is well below the state average, and opportunities outside of agribusiness and energy are scarce. For a city this small, the combination of high crime and limited economic mobility creates a cycle that is extremely difficult to break. Alice is not the kind of place you hear about in the news. It's the kind of place where problems are silent, persistent, and ignored, and that makes it dangerous in a way that doesn't make headlines. Snyder, Texas. We head northwest, deep into West Texas. Snyder has about 11,200 people and is located in Scurry County, approximately 145 kilometers southeast of Lubbock. It's small, remote, and almost entirely dependent on oil. The violent crime rate here is 873 per 100,000. For a town of 11,000 people, that's a staggering number. It's almost triple the national average. Snyder exploded when oil prices were high. Workers arrived en masse. Money flowed freely and the town grew. When prices plummeted, the workers left, but the problems remained. Drug use, primarily methamphetamine, filled the vacuum left by the oil money. The infrastructure was never built for what Snyder became during the boom, and it certainly wasn't built to withstand the consequences of collapse. Walk through the older residential neighborhoods, and you'll see houses that haven't been maintained for years, businesses that closed and never reopened. Snyder is what happens when a city's entire economy depends on a single commodity. When that commodity falls, everything falls with it. Odessa, Texas. Stay in the Permian Basin and head southwest. Odessa has about 115,000 people and is a symbol of the boom and bust cycle of oil in Texas. When oil is at $100 a barrel, Odessa is in party mode. Trucks everywhere. Hotels are packed. Workers are making fortunes. When oil drops to $30, Odessa collapses. Unemployment skyrockets. Crime rises and the city empties out. The violent crime rate has consistently remained above the national average, and the property crime rate follows the same pattern. But what changed Odessa permanently was August 31st, 2019, when a gunman drove along Interstate 20 and Highway 191, firing randomly from his vehicle. 7 people died, 25 were injured. That day fundamentally altered how residents view safety in their own city. Economic volatility alone would put Odessa on this list. The fact that it's also marked by one of the deadliest mass shootings in Texas history makes it impossible to leave it out. Lubbock, Texas, home to Texas Tech University and approximately 260,000 people, Lubbock sits on the southern plains of West Texas, the hub city. The nickname seems ironic when you look at what this hub is actually producing. The overall crime rate in Lubbock hovers around 3,572 per 100,000 residents. Property crimes are at approximately 42 per 1,000 people, one of the highest in the state. And the violent crimes aren't just fights near campus. The DEA has identified direct connections between methamphetamine distribution networks in Lubbock and Sinaloa cartels in Mexico. Lubbock has become a significant node in the drug trafficking pipeline through West Texas. The police department achieved a 100% resolution rate in the 15 homicide cases recorded in 2024, which is genuinely impressive. But thefts, vehicle thefts, and methamphetamine-related crimes continue to plague the city at rates that a college town should never see. You hear Texas Tech and think of parties in American football. The data says something very different about the city around that campus. Amarillo, Texas. In the Texas Panhandle, Amarillo has about 200,000 residents and is located on Interstate 40, the corridor of the old Route 66. The violent crime rate is 7.2 per 1,000 inhabitants. Methamphetamine-related crimes dominate the arrest records. Vehicle thefts have been growing by about 12% per year. The industrial areas north of the city account for almost 45% of all burglaries. Amarillo is brutally cold in the winter, ice storms, biting wind, and scorching in the summer, geographically isolated. The nearest city of any size is Lubbock, for 180 kilometers to the south. Dallas is 6 hours away. Denver, 6 hours to the north. If something goes wrong in Amarillo, you're very far from anywhere else. The methamphetamine pipeline that runs through the Panhandle has transformed what was once a quiet crossroads town into a place where property crimes are a daily reality for residents, and where certain neighborhoods at night bear no resemblance to the Amarillo of tourist brochures. Humble, Texas. Now, we move to the Houston metropolitan area. Humble has about 17,000 people and is located just northeast of Houston, along Highway 59. People think they are moving to a safe suburb of Houston. They are wrong. The violent crime rate in Humble hovers around 10 per 10,000 residents. The property crime rate is over 82 per 10,000. The total crime rate was recently measured at 10,723 per 100,000. Read that number again. For a suburban community of 17,000 people, that means approximately 1 in 10 residents will be affected by some crime in a given year. These are not Houston numbers spilling over here. These are Humble's own numbers, generated within its own jurisdiction. Proximity to major highways and commercial corridors makes Humble a magnet for property crimes, especially vehicle theft and burglary. Residents and online forums describe a growing feeling that the suburban promise they move to no longer matches what they experience on a daily basis. Corpus Christi, Texas, the Gulf of Mexico. Beautiful views, beaches, a skyline with the sea in the background, and a crime rate that puts all this scenery in a very different light. Corpus Christi has about 320,000 people, and the violent crime rate is around 7.9 per 1,000 inhabitants. Property crimes are above 31 per 10,000. The rate of robberies and thefts has remained consistently high for years. The poverty rate hovers around 18.7%, approximately 1.5 times the national average. The refinery and port economy provides jobs, but concentrates wealth in narrow sectors, leaving much of the population economically vulnerable. The coastal location that makes Corpus Christi attractive also makes it expensive in ways that newcomers don't expect. Home insurance premiums on the Texas coast rose 55% between 2019 and 2024. The average annual premium is now around 16,000 Brazilian reals. Texas experienced 20 weather events that caused billions in damages in 2024 alone. You move for the view, you're left with the insurance bill. Gonzales, Texas. This one surprises people. Gonzales is a tiny town of about 7,573 people, roughly 115 kilometers east of San Antonio. It calls itself the cradle of Texas independence, the site of the first shot fired in the Texas Revolution. That's the history. Here's the present. The violent crime rate in Gonzales is approximately 1,395 per 100,000 inhabitants. That's 258% above the Texas average. In a town of fewer than 8,000 people, you have a 1 in 72 chance of being a victim of violent crime in any given year. Assaults and serious attacks dominate the records. Limited police resources and deep economic hardship drive the numbers. For such a small town to generate violence per capita at this level, something structural is broken, and it's been broken for a long time. Gonzales is the kind of place that never enters the national conversation about dangerous cities. Maybe it should. Port Arthur, Texas. Located 145 kilometers east of Houston on the Gulf Coast, Port Arthur has approximately 54,000 residents. The poverty rate is 26.7% to 91% above the national average. The median household income is approximately 180,000 Brazilian reals per year, 44% below the national median. More than 1 in 7 households earns less than 50,000 Brazilian reals per year. Let that sink. 61% of households earn less than 250,000 Brazilian reals per year. Unemployment hits 8.6%. The oil refineries that built Port Arthur are still operating, but the wealth they generate doesn't stay in the city. It flows to corporate headquarters in Houston and abroad. What remains is a community where the air smells of petrochemicals, the streets regularly flood, and the median income wouldn't cover rent in most medium-sized Brazilian cities. Port Arthur is a hidden Texas that nobody talks about. It's located 90 miles from one of the world's largest economies and may very well be on another planet. Belmead, Texas, just northeast of Waco. Belmead has about 10,000 people. It's technically a suburb of Waco, but statistically it's in a category of its own. Property crimes here reach 111 per 1,000 inhabitants. That means approximately 1 in 9 people in Belmead will be a victim of property crime in any given year. 1 in 9. The violent crime rate approaches 11 per 1,000, also among the highest in the state for a community of this size. Belmead doesn't have a population to generate headline-grabbing numbers. It's not Houston with tens of thousands of incidents. But in per capita terms, living in Belmead means accepting a level of risk to your property and yourself that most people would find unacceptable. The city sits on the edge of Interstate 35, which brings transit traffic and the crime patterns that follow major highway corridors. For residents, the combination of high crime and limited municipal resources creates a daily reality that Waco's charming tourist brand completely ignores. But the number one city on this list makes all of that seem manageable. It's a city of 16,000 people in the Rio Grande Valley with a violent crime rate twice that of Chicago. Twice. We'll get there. Houston, Texas. Population, 2.3 million. The largest city in Texas and the 4th largest in the country. Houston recorded 128,688 total criminal occurrences in 2024. The violent crime rate is 1,148 per 100,000 to 195% above the state average. To put that in perspective, that equates to approximately 3 violent crimes per hour in the city. The northeast sector of Houston accounts for 42% of all violent crimes. Gang-related assaults are up 7%. The sheer volume of Houston is what sets it apart. Smaller cities on this list have worse per capita numbers, but no city in Texas generates more raw criminal activity than Houston. Urban sprawl makes everything worse. Houston is enormous, over 1,700 square kilometers without zoning laws. You can be in a neighborhood of millions and be 3 blocks from a high-crime area without any warning. The infrastructure can't keep up. Police response times at certain precincts extend beyond what most residents consider acceptable. Houston is a great city for many people. The economy is real, the diversity is unmatched, and the opportunities are genuine. But if you move to the wrong part of Houston without doing your research, you'll be stepping into a statistical reality that rivals the most dangerous cities in the country. Beaumont, Texas. About 112,000 people, 145 kilometers east of Houston via Interstate 10. Beaumont has the violent crime numbers of a major metropolis with nearly 2 million fewer residents. The violent crime rate is 1,137 per 100,000 to 192% above the Texas state average and 278% above the national average. Beaumont is safer than only 2% of all cities in the United States. The poverty rate hovers around 20%. The economy was built on oil refineries, and as the energy sector transformed, Beaumont failed to keep pace. The result is a structural decline, a city with aging infrastructure, little job diversification, and crime rates that stubbornly refuse to fall despite improvements across the state. The property crime rate is around 33 per 1,000 inhabitants, with burglaries and vehicle thefts leading the categories. For a city you probably never heard of, Beaumont produces numbers that belong in the same conversation as cities 10 times larger. That's not something to aspire to. Donna, Texas. And now you understand why this list had to have 13. Donna is located in the Rio Grande Valley, in the far south of Texas, in Hidalgo County. Population, 16,381, near the border with Mexico. From the highway, it looks like dozens of other small towns in the valley. Flat land, low buildings, chain stores along the main street. Nothing on the surface suggests what the data reveals underneath. Donna has a violent crime rate that puts it in the top 1% of the most dangerous communities in the entire country. More than 99% of Texas communities have a lower crime rate. Your chance of being a victim of violent crime here is approximately 1 in 57. For a town of 16,000 people, these numbers aren't just high, they're disorienting. Now I'll give you the comparison that makes this real. Chicago's violent crime rate hovers around 884 per 100,000. Donna's is significantly higher. By some measures, almost double. That means Donna, Texas, a city most Americans have never heard of, is statistically more violent per capita than Chicago. It's not a typo. It's not data manipulation. It's the FBI's Uniform Crime Reporting Program. Most violent crimes are assaults, followed by robberies, rapes, and homicides. But this isn't random violence. It's a community under extreme economic stress. The Rio Grande Valley has some of the lowest median incomes in the entire state. Limited infrastructure, limited services, limited opportunities. Crime is a symptom of a city where the system has been stretched beyond its limits long ago. The people here aren't statistics. Their families try and survive in a place where the cards have been stacked against them for decades. But for anyone considering a change, the numbers are the numbers. And these numbers are the worst in the state. And now you know 13 cities. Some you've heard of, others you haven't. But each one has data that anyone thinking about moving to Texas needs to see before signing a lease or closing a deal on a house. Texas is still a great state. The economy is huge. The diversity of landscapes and communities is unlike anywhere else in the country. But not every part of Texas is participating in the boom. Some parts are struggling in ways that the everything is bigger and better in Texas narrative completely ignores. The state gained 391,000 new residents last year, but net domestic migration has actually slowed from 222,000 in 2022 to just 67,000 in 2025. Dallas County lost residents. United Van Lines now rates Texas as balanced for the first time, equal numbers of people arriving and leaving. The narrative that everyone is moving to Texas is weakening. And part of the reason is right here in the data we just went through. Each city on this list has people who love it, who are working to make it better. These numbers aren't the whole story, but they're a part of the story you need to know before you move. If you're thinking about moving, do your research. Look at crime statistics city by city. Check poverty rates. Ask people who actually live there, not people selling property. The difference between choosing the right city in Texas and the wrong city is the difference between the best decision you ever made and the worst. If this video was helpful, subscribe to Inside Texas. We're covering all of Texas, the places you should run to and the places you should run away from.